That is awesome.
Recording in progress.
That is some exceptional Zoom then.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean,
We can figure it out.
We could have Zoom in heaven.
All right, everybody, I'd like to get this meeting started. It is 1:30, and I call the March 13th, 2024 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. One thing that I would like to do first, please, is we have a long-standing member that just recently passed away, so I'd like to read something before. So before I get everything started, I'd like to take a second and recognize one of our longtime board members who just recently passed away. Bob Holly was one of a kind. He was a friend to everyone and a mentor to many. Bob was one of the founding members of the Penn Building Trades Program and a 60-year member of the Home Builders Association of St. Joseph Valley. Bob was someone that I looked forward to seeing every day. He was a wealth of knowledge and someone who was extremely hard to, or who will be extremely hard to replace up here. I feel strongly enough about this that I can speak for everybody up here and everybody sitting in front of me that Bob will truly be missed. And we want to thank you for your service that you gave to St. Joe County and the Board of the Zoning and Appeals. If we could, everybody, please take a moment of silence for Bob Holly, and then we'll get the meeting started. All right, thanks everybody for that. I appreciate that. Currently, we have 5 members present, and 1 on Zoom of a 7-member board. If you feel your petition needs to be heard by the full board, please let our staff know now, and we will table your petition until the next meeting when we have more board members in attendance. We first ask that anyone from the public comment from those sitting in the chambers, and then we'll call on those attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat. Please clearly state your name and your address for the record. Board members, please state your name when making a motion and a second, and please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. One thing I want to add is I would like to try to keep the gallery comments to a minimum. If you guys have a phone call or a conversation you'd like to have, please take it outside, and please try not to talk or create too much motion in the gallery when somebody's up during the petition, please. If we could have roll call.
Mr. Tavernier,
Here.
Mr. Byers,
Here.
Mr. Velman,
Here.
Mr. Devon,
Here.
Mr. Ritzma,
Here.
Mr. Roush,
Here.
Mr. Schaefer, six board members.
Okay. Good?
Petition, oop.
Good? Yeah. Go ahead.
Petition number 1, location 51297 Grand Oaks Court. Owner, William Joseph and Courtney Moran. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070, sub C2A2, to allow a near north setback of 6 feet where 8 feet is required for a treehouse. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Shelley, could you click on the PowerPoint? Good afternoon, Fariel Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. This petition may be familiar to some of you. In August of last year, the property owners on this lot applied for a 0-foot rear setback to allow for an accessory structure, a treehouse. That request was denied by this board, and they are now proposing to modify the treehouse to meet a 6-foot rear yard setback where 8 foot is required. Staff is recommending approval for this request. The subject property is located at the end of a cul-de-sac in the Woodland Hills subdivision in Granger. To add some more background, in May of 2023, the building department red tagged this accessory structure, which was located on the rear of the property, and then it came to our attention for the setback. This is the back of the tree house. They have stairs there. This is the home on site. This is the tree house from the front. It's basically supported by 2 trees up front and 2 beams in the back. This survey was provided to us during the August meeting. I've zoomed in a bit so you can get a better idea of where the treehouse is currently. The closest corner is 1.75 foot from the property line as it currently stands. This was also provided to us during the August meeting. It's a schematic of a new septic system the property owners installed. So where they have blocked out portions in black, that's the changes they're planning to make. Basically, they plan to move the current stairs to the front and cut off a portion of the tree house so that it meets a 6-foot setback. They would also move one of the support beams back, so it would be the overhang of the tree house that would encroach by 2 feet into the 8-foot setback. This is the plat of the Woodland Hills Estate. The subject property is on Lot 80. So at the previous meeting, an issue was raised about the property to the north, Lot 80. Currently, that property is mostly wooded, but there is a single-family home about 450 feet north from the subject property. In 2005, a primary plat was approved in this area for a major subdivision. If that plat were executed and those lots were built, Lot 80 of Woodland Hills, the subject property, would be abutting that new subdivision. As shown, it would mostly share a property line with proposed Lot 13. The currently existing home is labeled on this plat as, well, you can see it as proposed Lot 3, as well as existing building to remain. Going to state law criteria, the treehouse would likely have no impact on public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. With these proposed changes, the encroachment into that rear setback is limited and would still allow the property owners access around the structure without going onto the property to the north. Continued use would likely not impact the use and value of the neighboring properties. The structure is similar to a backyard playhouse, which are common in this neighborhood. As far as the property to the north, it is currently heavily wooded, which provides some natural screening. If the subdivision were executed and new lots were put in there, the lots in the primary subdivision are actually larger than the current minimum lot size, and due to that larger lot size, proposed future development could be constructed such that the visual impact from the treehouse is minimal. Finally, staff finds that strict application of the terms of the chapter would result in practical difficulties. The lot is kind of shaped like a triangle or a trapezoid, so any accessory structures placed on the sides would become visible from the street and may potentially demand a variance from the required side setback as well. As far as placing it closer to the middle or closer to the home, the property contains a larger septic system, which you can see from that schematic. That larger septic system makes placing accessory structures closer to the home impractical. For these reasons, staff is recommending approval of the variance and can answer any questions.
Any questions? No? Is the petitioner present?
Yes.
Name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
Hi, Courtney Moran,
And William Moran.
51297 Grand Oaks Court in Granger. We wanted to start by just she just reviewed, and thank you for that, a lot of kind of the history of how we got here, but also how we first had a structure built on this property that we were over our easement. We had, at the time that we had it built, we'd reached out to a number of people, including a realtor, about setbacks, and we received some bad information. We built the treehouse in good faith. We had also HOA approval for the treehouse that was done. And so in our minds, we were not doing anything incorrectly. Again, we were building a treehouse structure for our children. So once we learned about this, we applied for our setback. The original 0 setback that we requested was because we didn't yet have our property surveyed. And so we didn't know exactly where we were on that setback. So we requested 0, even though we were, as she just stated, 1.75 feet back from the property line. And now these modifications that we're proposing would kind of allow us to still keep the structure, keep it structurally sound, which was some of the issues of moving a support beam and things like that. Like she said, 2 trees support the front of it, but the back is supported by 2 beams. So we would have to just make some modifications there, and I'll let Nick go on.
So, and then since that time, because I don't know the exact procedures for whether you're allowed to only approve the exact specific application for the variance, or if it can vary from that, because we've gone from 0 feet to now 6 feet. And one of the questions we've come up with, since we've gotten the favorable recommendation from the staff, we've met with additional new general contractors. We even went so far as to have a heavy equipment operator that came out and was talking about using cranes to lift the structure and rotate it and put in a steel beam. And we don't even know what that would cost yet, but he said it's possible. He's like, this is small potatoes compared to some of the other jobs they've done. But now we're talking about machinery near our new septic field and some of those other concerns. So I've got some, if you want to pass those out, copies for everybody, just some additional measurements that weren't in there, just to provide some clarity to where, like, the northeast support beam, the northwest support beam, the current edge of the structure, the stairs. So there's some different things that we could do to get closer to that 8-foot setback that's required. 6 feet, frankly, I don't know if it's possible or not. Moving the stairs is definitely the easiest thing we can do to move it to the front on the west side or the east side. As soon as we can cut the back part of the structure off and make a new wall. As soon as we move the northeast beam, it gets a little trickier with structural integrity and things like that. So I guess my question or my statement would be that if we were to apply for a future variance, I mean, there's sort of 3 different levels, as you can see there. The 1.75 foot is the closest point of the actual structure above ground to the property line based on that survey. That would be obviously the most preferable variance for us. The 3.5 foot, it's roughly 3.5 feet, is to that beam, that support beam. And again, we could remove the actual portion of the structure, but leave the beam where we're at. Everything is no closer than 3.5 feet. And then on the page 3, there is no page 2. Page 3 of those pictures, the 2.5 feet is where the stair beam currently is. So a variety of different options. But again, just to sort of wrap it up, because it's a number of you were here for the previous hearing, and we just wanted to reiterate that we're not trying to do anything to degrade our property value or the potential future property value to the north of us. We've got one of the nicest lots in Woodland Hills, and we bought it for that reason. And so every cost was put into this treehouse to make it aesthetically pleasing. So really, we're just looking for options for a setback that can be approved and maintain the structure as intact as possible. We're happy to answer any questions.
How high off the ground is this again?
It's about 10 feet to the base of the platform. And one additional note, we have had positive conversations with the building department who've indicated that basically, yes, this would be a permittable structure. They would be able to get a permit for it if a variance was approved.
Yeah, and when, in speaking with the building department, the biggest, question mark that we had was if we get this setback and then we have to go then to, the building department, there's nothing about a tree house or anything that's connected to a tree, and how do you approve something? And they said basically that's where this board comes into place to allow for, differences or modifications, because again, we were looking for any kind of information about, what are the laws that apply to us when we have a structure that's not even on the ground, and there's nothing. And so we're trying, to do our best to, maintain and really to maintain and improve our relationship with our neighbor. We don't want any hard feelings or bad blood, and so we're trying, like I said, by doing this to sort of make amends and make modifications as needed to keep our treehouse intact.
So with this being 10 feet off, what is the distance from the beam or from that 6x6? What is cantilevering out? What is that depth, this back corner?
I'd say it's probably 1.5 feet, because I didn't climb up there to measure the 1.75. That's what the survey told us. off the property line. I used a tape measure on the ground from that.
What's cantilevering over, how far is that cantilevering over that beam in the back? Because you got a 6x6 in this back corner, but
Right.
it doesn't go all the way into the corner.
Right, so there's a series of, I think they're 2x12s joists that are running parallel with the floor of the treehouse. And then there's a 2x2 LVL header, or I should say two 2-inch thick LVL headers that are at that outer back wall.
So what I'm asking is
How far is this from here? He wants to know how far that is.
That's where I think it's about 1.5 feet. There's only,
1.5 feet.
so when I look up at it, there's one row of joists that would have to be removed past that 6x6.
So my question is, right, and this is probably more of a question for Randy, but is this considered an overhang that would be allowed to encroach into a setback since it is?
Okay, two things that I just want to note. I'll answer your question second. First is, for clarification, if a 6-foot setback was applied for, and you're coming today saying it is going to be 1.75 or 2 feet, that is greater than what was advertised and cannot be granted.
Okay,
They could grant you a 6-foot, a 7-foot. They can't grant more than what was
grant.
advertised. And what was advertised was what was applied for.
got it.
Two is that I did consult Fariel consulted the building department prior to today. Randy could not be here. There was a site inspection at the same time. But his response was, if the variance is granted, they'll need to apply for a building permit and they will inspect the structure at that time. So he can't advise based on what's in front of you. They'll deal with whatever the outcome is, regardless of whether you approve it or deny it.
Yeah, and
And
the
they mon-
modifications that we can make, and again, you know, we've talked to a number of people and contractors. We don't have anybody, you know, we're waiting on a result here to actually hire someone. And we can make the modifications to make, you know, the 6 foot, including anything that encroaches and hanging over.
To answer your question about what overhangs, there is a section of our zoning ordinance that does allow certain structures to overhang. It's not specifically referencing a structure like this.
Well, yeah,
It's more referring to like eaves and open porches and things like that.
yeah.
It also looks like it's only referring to front and side yards.
No, there is a section that says in rear yards.
Yeah, there's a section for all of it.
Like I
Okay,
found it
that's all I
was
was
rear
asking.
side and
Do
front
you
yard.
know, Abby, what's the setback for an accessory structure in general on the county?
8 feet at the rear?
8. And one last clarification from staff, would this not be just considered an outbuilding, basically, or accessory structure?
Yes.
And what are the limitations on size for that in the current ordinance?
It's based on the square footage, but they're well below because they have an attached garage.
Okay, so they'd fall within the, half or whatever, 1.5 times
Yeah.
or whatever the calculation is, gotcha, okay.
So to clarify, you applied for a 6-foot, and that will or will not work at this point?
We believe that it could be made to work, but it was probably the most difficult. And maybe we swung too far to the opposite extreme. We didn't have all the info before submitting this application. We did learn our lesson the first time, which is we're trying to get approval before doing the work. And so we've had people come out and they've had us pitch some theories like, okay, we could get a crane to hold it and then insert a steel beam, and then you could move that, kind of the question about overhang, we could move that beam, supporting beam closer and then have a steel beam across. And so we've been exploring options, but obviously the less that we have to move the support beam or alter the structure, the better for us. And if it was, the limit is 6 feet, then, and we get further down that road, we could reapply for some lesser variance, or more variance, I guess. Yeah.
I've always wondered what happened with this.
Well, this was as soon as we could get back in here, they said,
Honestly, I have two.
yeah, you gotta wait 6 months before reapplying. We did finish our septic, so that's the good news, and we're trying to, there's some grass that was able to grow before the winter, but we're trying to get it fixed so that our kids can run around in the backyard and use the treehouse, and now that our backyard's not a giant mud pit.
Yeah, and I think my husband's question, based on the 3 feet and things here, was we just weren't sure if the beams were included in some of the setback of the structure, because there was, like he said, an ability to put a support beam in that would take over the structure of that beam if needed, and so, but yeah, we have a lot of options. They're just, nothing written in stone yet until we can get someone out to tell us that we can keep the treehouse safe.
And obviously, we're looking at it from a perspective of what is going to cost us financially the least, and we know that that's not a consideration for the variance, but it also goes to the usability of the structure. With that tree there, those front trees serving as the support beams, you can only move it so far forward, even with the crane, before you're imbalanced, cantilevering too far, and we can only go so far forward with that northeast support beam before it's, we're digging a hole right next to that supporting tree, and we have to worry about damaging that one, and
Right, there was an option to actually keep the structure the exact same as it is right now and pivot it on that larger tree. We'd take out the smaller tree that you're looking at there in the front, and there would be a support beam, and so that would just become basically a flat beam for the tree. But structurally, they weren't comfortable with doing that, and so that's where we moved to cutting off part of the back of the structure.
And for reference on this picture, that orange cone is sitting on top of our new septic tank. And then the main drain pipe runs to the left of the picture, which would be west, all the way across the yard to that enormous septic field that we had to put in place because of the properties of our soil drainage. So when we start talking about bringing in heavy equipment right there, it's like, man, we're really close to our septic tank.
Okay. You guys got any more questions? Nothing? Tom?
No questions.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks.
Thank you
guys.
for your time.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. I'll need your name and address in 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Edward Hardig, Hardig, live at 16700 Adams Road, Granger. Our property is the land immediately to the north. I didn't expect that I would be remonstrating today, but this has been sort of inches and inches and inches. It was built in violation. The request for approval of the homeowners was sought after it was built, although representations were made that they had prior approval. I also have documentation that shows that the building or the homeowners association clearly stated that they aren't approving the location of the structure. They're just approving them to build a tree house. Now, the request for the approval of the association sent after it was built was sent to the neighbor Zabos that winter in California. So he received it back then, contacted some of the people after it was built. They said, okay with the treehouse, but not approval, not definitely approval on the location. That's up to governmental authority. I didn't think I'd have to be expressing that today, but I want to clear up the factual representations that are made. Now you can see why I was worried to be here today, because now I come and we don't have a plan. I looked at this and it says, this is the plan. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're 6 feet from your property line, that is verified by the Plan Commission or the building department, and a building permit is issued, and I didn't think we needed to have 6 months to issue a building permit, I wouldn't have any objection to this. I just came just to watch what I thought would be a formality. So now I'm concerned. So the board is being asked to do 3 separate options today. I don't know which one it is. But if this is not going to be approved based on this is what's submitted. This is why I'm here. And this has been going on now for almost a year since it was red tagged, and it was up in violation since, let's say, December of 2021, which was before the homeowners association was contacted. So when is enough enough? When is the end? I don't have any problem with the Morans personally. They have children, fine, that's wonderful. But we're all supposed to do what's right. And only this board, the question is, will a board enforce what's to be done? So to one extent, it's by accident that I'm here today, but I'm kind of glad I was here. Based on, I guess, their withdrawal of their current petition, I don't know how you can vote approval for this if they've got 3 alternates that they're submitting to you. That's a dilemma, and that's something that the staff has to work. But I have no problem with this, and it's subject to a building permit and subject to verification that it's 6 feet from their property line. Now, they have a survey, I have a survey. And I think the last time I was here, I said I'm not going to argue about 3 inches. I didn't know there was 1.5 feet on this, 7 inches or something. That's new to me today. Last time it was just a matter of inches. So hopefully the Morans will say, this is what we're sticking with, this is what we brought in, and if not, if they want to withdraw the petition, then I request that the BZA act the way it's supposed to be and enforce the removal of this structure. I have no axe to grind, I just want people to do what they say they're going to do, and luckily I'm here, so you understand the dilemma. I appreciate you listening to me, and I'll answer any question. I've always tried to be a good neighbor with whomever I've been around, and I think so far my word has still been good in this community. And when I stand before this board, whether it's zoning or the county council or the city council, if I make a representation, I make a representation. If my client makes the representation and it's not what they told me beforehand, I point that out. So I have no axe to grind against the Morans, but, it was built wrongfully. I don't really believe that some builder said they didn't need to get a building permit. It may be 10 feet off the ground and then 19 feet above that or whatever the heck it is. I can see it from the house. There's no question about that. But I wish them well. But if they can't move it or they can't convolute it, just aim it in a different direction. I see it right now. There's a stake. They could just aim it to the north and to the east and the west.
Your 5 minutes.
All right, my 5 minutes are up. Thanks for listening to me. And I think you understand. If you have any questions about my feeling on it, but I have no axe to grind, but I want people to do what they say they're going to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to me. I didn't want to be here. Thank you.
Hang on a second. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Now you have 5 minutes to rebuttal, for a rebuttal.
Thank you. So just to clarify a couple of things. Obviously, we didn't understand the procedure, and in hindsight, if we had done that, we probably would have applied just for the 1.75, which was the absolute maximum that we would need, and then discuss here today going forward from there. But the length of the process, we were told that we had to wait at least 6 months after having a variance denied before we were able to reapply. This was the absolute soonest hearing that we could do that. So we're not trying to drag it out any further. And again, to my comment before, we're trying to do it right this time and get approval and then really start to finalize plans with a contractor or whoever. So if we get an approval for 6 feet today, because that's the absolute maximum that we could get, then we would go out and see what's possible. And if they said, look, if we could just get 1 more foot, then you can put this beam here and do this, and it's more usable, more structurally safe, et cetera, then we would be able to reapply for a new variance not waiting 6 months, because we were not talking about a denial at that point, we're talking about a new request in a month from now or 2 months from now or what have you. But it was certainly not our intent, and I apologize for adding a little bit of confusion, but I wanted to provide some clarity on those measurements and things.
And then, just to be very clear, what we are asking for is exactly what we applied for, is that we would work with the contractor with the plans that were submitted to modify the treehouse exactly as you're seeing it on that schematic. And lastly, to the HOA point, there were many discussions with our HOA before that approval was submitted, including the location of that treehouse. And the approval of it was mostly, you know, he was our next door neighbor. He is our next door neighbor, was a go ahead and submit it when you're done, once you have a final plan. And so that's where there's some confusion about whether or not we had pre-approval for this. And on writing, yes, we had approval after it was built, but the intent was always to do that.
As soon as because he was our next door neighbor, as soon as we had started construction, so it wasn't yet finished, he reached out to us and said, hey, you're gonna need HOA approval for that. And that's when we started the process back and forth. And so, again, he was our neighbor, and to Mr. Harding's point, they do summer in Florida, so there was some back and forth and a little bit of confusion, but, you know, to our understanding that it was approved by the HOA, so.
So thank you, and we'll ask the board to please approve our variance based on what you're seeing right here. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions?
I guess, just to clarify, if there was a question and they want to modify their, you know, they could table it, correct? If they want to modify the dimension of their variance request to next month, or no? Is that-
You
would they have to
could-
completely go and?
Yeah, you guys could table it, or the petitioners could table it.
They would have to then
Yes, we
What
would re-advertise.
What if they withdrew?
because if we vote on it, then they would have to wait another 6 months, correct? And it goes one or another?
Well, they don't have to wait another 6 months to alter it, to ask.
If the petition is voted on and it is denied, they have to wait 6 months.
Right.
If they withdraw it, if it was the same petition, they would have to wait 3 months. If they alter it in any significant way, which it sounds like they would not necessarily have to wait the full 3 months. They could request that you table it, and in that time, change it in time for advertising, if you vote to allow them to table it.
Well, even though it's their right, what I don't want to do is hear this thing 5 times.
That is the reason that the limitations were put in the petition,
I was just trying to
in the
clarify, if
rules.
we vote on this as it is, I mean, they're stuck with that, the 6 foot, they have to modify it to whatever that is. If they're looking to change it to a different dimension, what their options were on that.
And the modification has to happen right
in
away.
time to get re-advertised.
Can I ask a question? How long, if this is approved right now, how long do we have to actually make those modifications?
6 months? But go ahead, Abby, sorry.
There's no, it's a violation as long as it's there. It's a violation even if it's approved and from the time that the decision's made, as long as it stands there. 6 months is a rule of thumb that we have, because that's how long a building permit is valid before you have to
reapply.
begin work on it. I will say staff's recommendation came with the amended proposal. A condition in the staff report was it's approved in accordance with the site plan submitted. And that's staff's recommendation.
And the 6 feet measure, part of the confusion there was that came out of some conversations with the office about what types of setback variances had been approved before and in similar cases or things like that. And so we're trying to get something of some sort approved because to know if this was even a possibility to modify this in some way and before going further down this rabbit hole with contractors and engineers and things.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys got anything?
I have a question for staff. In your comments or your additional notes,
approval of the request is void unless an IPL, or ILP is granted. What's an ILP?
Improvement location permit. It's the clearance for pulling a building permit.
Understood. We all love our acronyms. Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what everyone else is understanding. If we approve if current conditions are they're in violation because they're within 1.75 feet of the surveyed property line per their surveyor. They're asking for 6 feet, which is 2 feet less than the 8 foot approved, and that would require heavy modifications. But they would prefer to do more than that,
That's not what they're asking.
but that's what they're asking for today. So we're being asked for just the 6 feet.
Correct.
Okay. What is the board's openness to allow tabling to come back with a different request if, with being in time for a republication?
To be clear, on tabling, you guys can request it, you guys can table on your own motion for, if you need further information to make your decision on the petition. If they ask you to table it themselves, you can vote on that request.
Oh, well, I don't need more information. I mean, so, okay, thanks.
I feel pretty confident they asked us to do this.
They tabled it to get it revised, they want it.
It'd be May before we hear it, probably.
I would disagree. Okay. But that's,
If we table it, isn't it tables on next month?
all right, then with all the information I have at my disposal, I would, taking into account the subjective nature of a setback and how it applies to how close it is to a property line and the surrounding areas and the potential injurious effect to that, I would make a motion to deny the request as a petitioner has requested.
Has anybody got a second, or? No? Give it like 5 more seconds. Okay, there was no second to that motion. Motion's died. Anybody else got anything?
Adam Devon, I will make a motion that we approve the 6-foot variance as presented.
Lance Roush, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Veldman?
No.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
No.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Petition number 2, location 26480 Jackson Road. Owner Paul and Deborah Weissenhoe? Weissenhoe? Thank you. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow for a minimum lot size of 16 acres where 20 is required. Variance number 2 from section 154.092 sub D to allow a rear south setback of 22 feet where 30 feet is required for an existing shed and outbuilding. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Good afternoon. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff.
So this petition and the next petition involve a series of variances to legalize the transfer of land between two property owners located here on the southeast corner of Jackson and Quince. So back in 2014, the necessary variances were secured and the property owners underwent a subdivision process to alter the configuration of two buildable lots to what it is today. Today, the owners are looking to more evenly distribute this land to what you see here. This petition pertains to the variances required for Lot 1's portion of this subdivision, from the required 20 acres to what they're proposing 16 acres, and then also a rear setback variance to legalize the accessory buildings that are approximately 22 feet from the rear property line. Here's the entrance to that western property and some of the buildings that you can see from the road. This is the eastern portion of the property that will be transferred to their neighbors. Is currently owned again by that western house. Here is one of the accessory buildings to be legalized. You can see behind this building is the ditch, and beyond that is quite a large cultivated farm. This building at one time was the primary structure on the property, which is why it looks like it does. But the new house that was constructed, the red one there, in 2020, when that happened, the property owners pulled a permit from the building department to convert this into an accessory structure and is now used as the property owner's shop. This is Jackson Road looking west and looking east, quite an agricultural area south of the county. Again, here's that proposed site plan showing the redistribution of the property. So staff does recommend approval of both of these variances. Approval should not have any injurious impact on the community. We are not creating an additional buildable lot as there are already two, nor will any agricultural land be taken out of production through this process. Legalizing the rear setback also should not have any impact, as that structure, again, used to be the primary structure on the property and has existed in that place for over 25 years without complaint. Similarly, use and value will be unaffected by granting this variance. No new construction is planned as part of this, and the structure that is already encroaching on the rear setback is adequately naturally screened from the abutting farm operations by that pretty sizable ditch. Finally, strict application of the terms of this ordinance would prevent property owners from having the flexibility to willingly transfer their land to make for a more logical parcel distribution, and staff finds the practical difficulties there. I will be happy to answer any questions you have on this first portion of the variances.
So they're just moving the property line, really?
Yep. So on this one, the dotted line is what it is today, and then the solid line is what it will be.
Anybody got anything? No? All right, thank you. Terry?
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue here in South Bend to represent the petitioners. As the staff had indicated, this was the original house parcel right here, was about an acre. The owners there desire to purchase this additional 9.4 acres and add that to their property. Pretty much divides the property almost in half. And the variances that we're asking for are for all the existing structures that are currently on site. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Terry, in rough numbers, what's the existing properties, like 25 and 1, or what are they currently?
There would have been 1 acre for this, and then there would have been approximately 25 for the other parcel.
Great, thank you. Curiosity.
Okay. All right, thanks, Terry. All right, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Anybody who would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got anything else? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variances as presented.
Downey Ritzmo, second.
We have a motion and a first and a second. Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and wish your written findings of the facts.
Petition number 3, location 26280 Jackson Road. Owner Raylan Lee Donathan. Requested action, variance from section 154.092 sub D to allow for a side yard west setback of 8 foot where 30 feet is required for an existing wood deck. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Carl Braun Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff again. So this is the third variance that's required to complete that subdivision we were just talking about. While the property is acquiring land to the south and east, as we've shown, it's going to be less than 20 acres. However, this variance is not required here, if you were wondering that, because they already got a variance to be 1 acre in 2014. So since they're going larger, they don't require a second lot area variance. So the variance that is being sought today, though, is for a porch that is greater than 30 inches above grade. That was added on to the west of the house after the 2014 variances were granted. So here's the existing property line. You can kind of see the house through the trees there. In a closer up of the porch, showed right there. There's Jackson Road looking east. Again, that part of the land that will be added to the Donathan's property. And the site plan again. So staff does support this variance as well. Approval will not be injurious to the community. The only property that this action might cause injury to would be that neighbor abutting to the west, who is a part of the petition indicating that they will not be injured by this. Additionally, the use and value will not be adversely affected. These porch additions are common for these types of properties, and it's effectively screened by, again, that row of trees along the western property line there. And finally, staff does find practicality in this case due to the residential nature of the addition. If we were looking at them pulling this permit today, because that lot is 1 acre, and they would be held to the 8-foot setback standard. But because they're adding that land going above the 2 acres, now they get that increased ag 30-foot setback. So we do find this to be practical difficulty because, again, of the nature of the addition, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
More general clarification, can you repeat the last sentence? It's always been zoned ag, hasn't it?
Yeah, so if you remember a little bit ago, we introduced a text amendment, and part of that was for properties that are zoned ag that are less than 2 acres.
I did not
They have a 8-foot side and rear yard setback.
put that on the cheat sheet.
Have you seen what? I have not, okay. What portion of the deck is over 30 inches?
The railing.
Seriously?
That's what I was
That's
wondering.
what we.
I was gonna run the same thing. I mean, I didn't
That's
know.
what the interpretation has been. The railing counts as
But
over 30
technically, you don't
inches.
need a railing,
You don't
anything
need a-
over 30 inches, so,
Yeah.
or under 30 inches, so.
Anything under 30 inches off of the ground is considered flat work, and if you put railing on it, railing is not considered because it's not platform.
That's your interpretation.
That is what the interpretation has been, and I was told to.
Listen, I build 120 decks a year. Trust me, railing's never been an issue. Okay.
Apparently you and staff do not agree.
Guess I'll have to call. I guess I'll have to call Randy. So if they take the railing off, they don't need the variance.
That'd be correct, I guess.
And you don't need a railing for a deck over.
And you don't, yeah.
Okay.
It's an aesthetic.
It's an aesthetic choice.
It's ridiculous. It's. We shouldn't be hearing this one.
Railing doesn't count. Okay.
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Address 1402 Mishawaka Avenue. And ditto for the previous presentation. We're basically, adding the additional property. It was probably better to ask for that variance than to have it come up to bite them in the backside later, like the previous petition was, about being too close. So that's why that was added.
Okay.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Actually, I'm just gonna stop. All right, you guys got any questions?
Lots, but nothing for you.
Lots? Okay. Thanks, Terry. We'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed.
Adam Devine, I make a motion, we approve the variance.
Donnie Ritzmo, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Veltman?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devine?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Petition number 4. Location, 3.22 plus or minus acre parcel south of and abutting 22475 Jackson Trail. Owner, Dustin and Amanda Denning. Requested action, variance from section 154.070 sub A3 to allow for the establishment of an accessory building prior to the establishment of a primary use on the lot. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
All right, Carl Brungrim, APC staff. So this petition is for an unaddressed 3-acre parcel west of the Bend on Jackson Trail. It's currently a vacant buildable lot that was created by a subdivision with the abutting property to the northeast through a 2020 subdivision. The petitioners are planning to build a primary structure on the house in the future, but are seeking variance to set up an accessory pole barn structure in the meantime. Staff is supporting the variance on the condition that this variance expires if a permit for the primary structure has not been pulled within 3 years. This is the vacant property continuing beyond the hill. The access to the property here, believe the existing building is to the right, and then the lot in question, the vacant lot is to the left. Jackson Trail, looking to the east, and then to the south, right at that bend. Here is the 2020 subdivision that created the buildable lot, again split from that neighboring parcel that has an existing house on it. This is a site plan submitted by the petitioner showing the proposed pole structure in the front, meeting the setbacks, and then the home that will follow, pushed sort of toward the middle or the back of the property. Turning to our state law criteria, provided the variance is approved with the conditions requested by staff, it will not be injurious to the surrounding community. Allowing for that accessory structure to be built first may allow for the petitioners to store items safely related to the construction of the primary dwelling unit that may otherwise need to be stored outside. Again, provided the condition requested by staff is imposed, the petitioner will be compelled to establish a residential use on the property within 3 years, which will further enhance the use and value of the surrounding residential neighborhood. Finally, the strict application of the ordinance in this case denies the petitioner the flexibility to develop the property in stages on a timeline that makes financial sense to them. Staff does recommend approval, again, conditioned on the terms outlined in the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Carl, isn't it, what makes it not okay to put an accessory structure up that's just a known, you can't do that without a residential on the property already?
Yeah, so there's a section of the zoning ordinance, primary use has to be established on a property before an accessory use can be on there, or accessory building can be on the property.
Okay.
And in this case, with the residential, the primary use would be a dwelling unit.
What if they would have called this, the barn dominiums, the new thing? What if they said, okay, this is gonna be the residential structure, put in a septic system and the whole deal?
Well, they'd have to have that would be okay, but they would have to show that there's a living space. They would have to meet a dwelling unit criteria.
You'd have to meet single-family code.
Right.
Just, the whole thing just seemed odd to me, but it's okay. We're here.
Well,
Put that on the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
we'll agree a little bit because I'm not picking on you, Carl, I'm just picking on the process. You've kind of, in your own statement of the case for it, it has to have a single-family home, but you said it's more equitable and advantageous to have an accessory structure first, but the code or ordinance requires them to have a single-family home first. So-
Right, so the worry is that, the reason I believe, or, I mean, I'm not totally sure, but the worry is that if, we wouldn't want people to set up like storage just without having that primary use. So the reason we're recommending approval is because we have that condition that does compel them, like, to build it within 3 years.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't just become a lot for storage, basically.
And in your recommendation, it's actually pulling a permit within 3 years,
Right.
which would give them 4 years. Okay.
What happens if they don't?
It becomes a zoning violation at that point. The variance expires.
Okay. So they'd have to reapply.
Or tear it down.
We have a spreadsheet that we track these requests on.
Carl, this is Tom Byers. How do you determine the size of the accessory structure without knowing the size of the primary structure?
Well, it's ag. Oh, it's R.
No, it's R.
Yeah.
That is a good point. I'm not sure. I think we would require at that point, we would require the primary house to be a certain size, or else once that house was built, then this accessory structure would become a zoning violation at that point. If
Okay.
the primary structure was too small.
Okay.
And that is something we advise on when people request this variance. We tell them, you know, if you build this size accessory structure, if you want to keep it, you need to
Yeah.
build a house of this size, essentially, so.
Okay, understood.
What's the relevance of the 3-year versus 2-year? Is that what they're wanting? Is their timeframe as far as building the residence, or is that just something we standardly use?
It's
or-
something we
It's-
standardly use. It just seems like a reasonable time period.
You know, this is a good argument right here, because what is the size of the pole barn?
If this is what we're being
Because this-
given to rule
Yeah,
upon, I don't
because
have
this
enough
is the
information
perfect
to be able to
argument for
understand.
needing actual site plans
I
for
need
something.
dimensions, what the thing's gonna look
Nowhere
like,
in
how
here.
it's gonna be done, all kinds of stuff, so this is inadequate in my opinion.
Nowhere in here does it tell me what's what. Okay, I assume he's the petitioner, so we'll,
Yes, sir.
you guys got any more questions?
No.
Not for staff.
No? All right, name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
Dustin Denig, current address 21160 Johnson Road, South Bend, Indiana 46614. For the building and size, I've been in constant communication with Sean Klein from the County City Building. I think he's I don't know his exact title. But prior to purchasing the property, he said that I was allowed to have a pole barn maximum 2 times the limit of the square foot of the house. The pole barn in question is going to be a 60 by 60, which would be 3,600 square feet. Currently on plans, the house, I'll be pulling a permit within the next 3.5 weeks to begin building, probably beginning the middle of June, by the time everything's worked out. And the house right now sits a little over 2,500 square feet, so it would meet the 2 times the minimum for the pole barn.
His title is VP of important stuff, by the way.
Noted, definitely noted, definitely noted. But yes, so the variance didn't really ask anything about the size of the structure on there, so I didn't think to give to it. But the pole barn in question, which is the 181 feet off the front of my property lot, 48 feet off the side property stake there, will be 60 by 60, which would meet the setbacks. And we would be well within the 3 years of the recommended building time of the house. It'll be within a few months here, actually.
Okay. Anybody
What's
got anything?
the pole barn gonna look like?
It'll be steel building, bay doors on the front for boats and whatnot, workshop, but nothing livable, it's not gonna be a barn dominium by any means.
Will it have water, power, and septic?
Power, that's about it. Which, once upon approval, I'd be contacting AEP to set up for power for the building and then also for the house coming up in the next few months.
And you're pulling a permit for it, right?
For the house, yeah, for everything, yeah, yeah, house. I'm working with Amber Marsh right now on the septic drawings and everything, so yes, yes.
Why are you wanting the barn so far away from the house that you're proposing?
Closer to the lot, to the street on Jackson Trail. I actually share, it's on the site plan that Lang Feeney did from when they mapped it out a few years ago. I have a shared driveway in the beginning that I share with one of my neighbors, so I'm setting it back so it's closer to that instead of back towards the house for easy access to the road.
Gravel driveway to it?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody got anything?
Would you be open to a condition of less than 3 years for the house to be built?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I plan on breaking ground here in the next, whatever, this is what, March, so next few months. June, July at the very latest. Like I said, I'm pulling permits with Amber Marsh right now for septic to be able to come and pull a building permit within the next month, so.
Good? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Name and address, sir, and you got 5 minutes.
My name's Leonard Robbins. I live at 22488 Jackson Trail. Been a neighbor with these folks for a while. I've been there 25 years. I think their mom and dad have been there 10. They have vastly improved that property since they moved there. It was in rough shape when they bought it. It's a beautiful place today. I am all for having this another new neighbor there, that they're all nice people. So I'm all for this.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition, please step forward. Name and address, and you got 5 minutes.
My name is Bozo Tozan, and I live in 22475, and we share the road whenever they access to the house. I have no problem. I am really happy to have this kind of neighbor. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed.
I just have one additional clarification. Once you get a building permit, you have to build within 2 years, right? Substantially completed within 2 years, is that correct?
You have to start within 6 months and complete within, it's 1 year with a 1 year automatic extension.
So it's 2 years.
You start getting questions at 1 year.
Adam Devon, I make a motion, we approve the variance with the, was that a suggestion by staff? Or was that part of the 3 year?
This is a condition.
It's a
That
condition.
was a condition on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry,
So are you, what condition are you putting on it?
It was suggested by staff.
Yeah, it's not unless you say it.
That's why I was asking if it was, yeah. I make a motion to approve the variance with the suggested 3 year building permit.
Pulling a
With
permit?
Pulling a building permit within 3 years of the variance
For a house.
for the house, correct, sorry.
The
for
conditions
the primary
included
residence.
in the staff report were approval of the request is void unless a permit for the accessory structure is issued within 6 months. Approval of the request expires unless a permit for the primary structure is issued within 3 years, and the request is approved in accordance with the site plan and is represented in the application.
Conditions listed in the
I revised my motion, and let's do that.
So, a motion, you're making a motion to approve the variance with
staff
the
recommendation.
conditions listed in the staff report?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Lance Roush, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Bellman,
No.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Devine,
Yes?
Mr. Tavernier.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your petition on the condition, or with the conditions listed in the staff report, and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, guys.
Petition number 5, location 23480 State Road 4 Highway. Owner Stephen T. and Kathleen J. Carter. Requested action, variance from section 154.092 sub C to allow lot frontage of 595 feet where 600 feet is required for a lot more than 20 acres, zoning A agricultural district, county.
Farial Sharif, Area Plan Commission staff. This petition is concerning a roughly 50-acre parcel in Union Township off State Road 4 or Pierce Road. The lot is zoned agricultural, as are the surrounding lots. To the east is property owned by the petitioner, and to the west is an abandoned railroad easement. Here is the property. As you can see, the area adjacent consists of single-family residential use and some agricultural activity. This stretch of State Road 4 has quite a few scattered wetlands and hilly as well. Currently, the lot has just about 595 feet of frontage, which is just under the 600 required to make it a buildable lot. Because of the abandoned railroad easement to the west, and because they also own the property to the east, theoretically, they could add the missing 5 feet by transferring ownership of the necessary frontage from either the railroad or from the property to the east. However, the property owner has experienced difficulty in obtaining clean title from the railroad to do so, and forcing them to shift the parcel line toward the property line to the east would not serve any practical purpose or serve any public interest. While it's generally not in line with the intent of the agricultural district to encourage new residential uses, in this case, staff is recommending approval. The area adjacent is unlikely to be affected since there are existing homes that have similar frontage, and the expansion of agricultural activity is unlikely given pre-existing splits and environmental conditions in the area. The petitioner is not requesting to split the lot any further to create multiple lots. For practical difficulty, they're asking for a variance for frontage that effectively they would have if they were able to obtain the clean title to it, and it's nominally narrower than what would be allowed by right. Staff is recommending approval of the variance and can answer any questions.
So they own the property to the east. And that has more than 600 foot of frontage?
That's correct.
So they could shift their property line 5 feet and accomplish what they need to do without doing a variance?
Technically, they could, it wouldn't serve any practical or public interest to do so, so that's our rationale there.
What's the process for shifting a property line?
Going through the plating process.
Yeah. I'll let him explain that.
So either way, it's 6 one way, it's on the other, they just chose nothing personal, Terry, but a cheaper route?
That's exactly the case, and that's what I advised them.
Understood. Thank you.
Terry Lang from the Whiteman office. Our address is 1402 Mishawaka Avenue here in South Bend to represent the petitioners. As the staff had indicated, the railroad here was purchased off of that property when it was the NJINI in about 1870 something. And no, I wasn't the surveyor on the site when that took place, but it would have had the appropriate 656 foot of frontage if the railroad hadn't purchased that. Mr. Carter is still proceeding to see if he can get title to that from the railroad, because the railroad comes down this way, and then it runs across the bottom of his other parcel. He's trying to acquire that. As I advised him, I said, dealing with the railroads is almost as slow as government. And so getting those kind of approvals from them, you're dealing with paperwork from a large railroad that, you know, getting appropriate title is very difficult. But he is still going to go ahead and try to proceed to get that. So I told him right now his son is interested in building a home on this piece, and I advised him to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals in this fashion. It's the easier, quickest way to do that, and he can pursue the railroad at his leisure then. When it happens, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll open this up to the public. If anybody would like to speak in favor of this petition, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Public portion is now closed.
Adam Devine, I make a motion we approve the variances as presented.
Donnie Ritzmo, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devine?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Thank you.
Number 6 was tabled prior to the meeting. So, number 7.
Petition number 7, 66650 Pine Road. Owner Raymond J. Stout Revocable Trust. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.458 sub C 1C to allow a permeable gravel surface where a hard surface of asphalt or concrete is required for an interior access drive providing access to the compound area of a proposed wireless telecommunications facility. Zoning A Agricultural District, County.
So Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this petition concerns a driveway that will lead to a proposed cell phone tower compound on the property outlined here. Per the zoning ordinance, the entirety of that drive from the street right of way back to the compound would need to be paved with a hard surface. If you look at the site plan here, it looks like the proposal is actually to share the drive opening for the single-family home, which is way back on the parcel, and then sort of split off to where the cell tower compound will be built. Staff recommends approval of the variance. Although the zoning ordinance in the cell tower section does require the entirety of the drive to be paved, that section predates 2 other sections of the ordinance that allow for just the first 50 feet of the drive to be paved for similar rural uses, those being the access to solar energy sites and agritourism. When we adopted those sections, this was done as we reflected that it wasn't reasonable to require hundreds of feet of drive to be paved necessarily in a rural setting. So as such, we support the variance on the condition that the first 50 feet be paved. This is adequate to protect the right-of-way from any gravel or dust that might be generated. This is what the site looks like today. And again, it's going to use that existing opening. Turning to the state law criteria, allowing the majority of this really seldom used access drive to be gravel rather than hard surface will have no impact on morals and the public health. And with the condition that the first 50 feet be paved, that will protect safety and general welfare. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. This will be a permitted cell tower by the time we finish the approval process. Just allowing the drive to be gravel rather than hard surface will have no impact on neighboring properties. Finally, we find that there is strict application in the terms of this chapter in requiring the entirety of that drive to be paved. That's something we recognized when we adopted later sections of the zoning ordinance, wherein we only required the first 50 feet. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anybody got anything? Nope. Okay, is the petitioner present? On Zoom?
Yes, Roy Slough, 216 Barton Avenue. I am here on behalf of the towers.
Okay, do you have anything to add to the staff's presentation?
Only that the towers would be agreeable to the staff recommendation of 50 feet
They would.
paving.
It would be. Okay. All right, you guys got any questions for him? Okay, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Anybody would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed.
Are we stipulating what we want the hard surface to be?
I think it was asphalt, the first 50 feet.
Concrete
right?
or asphalt.
Concrete or asphalt.
Well, it just says pavement in the conditions.
Hard surface.
Hard surface is fine.
Adam Devine, I make a motion for approval of the variance with the recommended staff recommendation for first 50 feet being hard surface.
Only that one, or you want 2 and 3 as well?
Was there more?
All staff
Yeah,
conditions.
there's 3 staff conditions imposed, that they suggested imposed.
Yes.
So your only condition is the 50 feet be paved?
Would you reiterate the conditions?
Yes. Do you see him? Okay.
Just the conditions on the staff report.
Adam Devine, I make a motion we approve the variance with stipulations of the staff
Conditions.
conditions.
Perfect.
On all 3.
Donnie Ritzmel, second.
We have a first and a second. Mr. Bellman,
Yes.
Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Devon,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance with the conditions listed in the staff report and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
So
Thank you, guys.
I have
Thank
a
you.
process question that I have then now. Since we did not vote on petition number 1, subject to staff conditions, are they enforced?
If you didn't make them subject to the conditions in the staff report in your motion, you
Then
just
they are
approved
null and
it.
void. Okay, so they don't have to do anything that staff recommended them to do.
Well, one of the conditions is always required regardless, the 6-month ILP.
That's a
So,
building permit.
just so you know.
Per our bylaws.
For our bylaws, yeah.
But it doesn't say the request is approved in accordance with the site plan and represented, so
That is correct.
that is the dilemma that I have is that
They
was.
have
one
to
of the-
figure out how to meet it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same way they showed you.
And that's, I guess, my issue with that is we continue to be the first point that people need to, the first hurdle that people need to jump in order to get things done. And they come usually with not complete information that I'm uncomfortable making a decision on.
They don't know yet,
Right.
which is why I said no too.
Well, but 6 feet, 6 feet.
Understood, but the demonstrator had a problem with what it was gonna look like at 6 feet.
But the 6 feet is
what
the
if they
setback
move-
was the violation now.
Yeah, if
Right.
they
It's
move the
not-
whole thing forward 6 feet, or to that 6 foot, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They could move it all the way down the property line.
Understood.
As long as it's 6 feet off of the property line.
Understood. Do you not have interest in how this ends up looking, though?
Yeah, because they were gonna cut off that back corner and that was it.
It's an accessory structure.
Yeah.
The county doesn't have regulations on beautification and what it's supposed to look like or not look like.
There's no architectural standards in the,
Yeah, in the ordinance, I understand. But it might be an abomination as well, too, so.
With the understanding that you're kind of discussing it more in general, because this sounded like this was a general complaint that you have that you
Yeah,
just don't like.
this is not against
Like,
petition
I would
one.
suggest not discussing it in the context of a specific petition that you just approved.
No, I would even bring it back to another one where they asked for an accessory structure that we don't know where it's gonna be, you know what's gonna be on the lot, we don't know how big it is, we don't know what it's gonna look like, we don't know what's gonna go in addition to it, we don't know anything really that's gonna happen with that rest of that lot, so.
You always have the options of saying, I need more information, here's what I need, and tabling it for that. Or just denying it because you felt like they didn't do their part in convincing you that what they wanted to do was correct.
Right.
I mean,
but we do know how big these are gonna be because we have an ordinance that if it's under an acre, it's this. If it's over an acre, it's this. If it's over 2 acres, 3 acres, 4
Understood.
acres, and 5. So.
relation to the primary structure.
Yeah, and so the accessory building can only be so big.
Understood. But in a particular petition, if they were to ask for something like an accessory structure without a primary, and then the primary isn't meeting that standard.
that becomes the responsibility of the staff to enforce it
So
as a
I'm-
zoning
I
violation.
understand. Now you're going down a path of how is that enforced? So now that it's already there, now they're gonna come back later and ask for another variance later as well, too. This goes back to, another petition that we had previously of a sign on a residential area. The long-term effects, I guess, is what I'm looking at on this aspect of it is, what's enforceable? What's enforceable by staff? What's enforceable by the St. Joe County, anyone? In particular, there was a accessory structure that was put within a foot, 1.75 feet of a rear lot line that's been in existence for almost 3 years now that hasn't been taken care of in that time frame.
The sign's been taken care of.
I'm just using general terms, but what we allow has to be enforced by someone.
That's not.
I think he's asking about how you're
And
using your
I'm saying
enforcement
that
discretion.
we may be putting them at a disadvantage on how they can enforce things or how long it takes to enforce things with some of the things that we allow. So just putting that out there.
If there's a specific property that you'd like to bring to our attention, we're happy to enforce it. As the petition was approved, I saw Sean add the property today to his spreadsheet. And also, I can look at a number of them and know that they have received building, or that they've pulled building permits for primaries. Of course, there's things that fly under the radar. That will always be the case, but if you bring them to our attention, we'll pursue enforcement.
But the reasoning for needing the residence is because if somebody could buy a lot anywhere and put up a pole barn, and then you'd have pole barns all over the place, and.
Oh, I fully understand the ordinance. We just let them not do that, though.
You had a petition, gosh, I don't know, it was up in Clay Township, remember, Sean?
Yeah, we denied it previously, I know. I'm just saying, we seem to get
Where-
less and less information that's makes me capable of making an informed decision on some of these petitions.
Well, so I agree with this, right? Because that site plan that was submitted, that's not going to be acceptable at the building department, right? Because it doesn't have all of the information that they're gonna want, and it's not to scale. And I don't know why we don't need that, because it makes our jobs, especially since I know how to read a site plan, it makes our jobs much easier, and it answers a lot of the questions that we ask up here. So, and it would make it a lot easier for them afterwards, because if it gets approved, then they already have it, and they just have to take it across the street, right? And they can do their application that day, instead of having to go get a site plan that's true.
I guess to the two builders on the board, you know, someone, by the time they get to plan set with you, they have, how much, there's always a chicken and egg, right? How much do I invest in this project before I file for a variance that I don't know if I'm gonna get or not?
To me, that's a them problem. If they want it bad enough, they're gonna have the site plan done. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, a lot of these people are coming, you know, they're trying to do it themselves or save some money here and there, so, but yeah, they need to have a site plan of some kind, not just a.
And it doesn't even have to come from Terry or Marsh or wherever, right? But they could have done that at a scale, and been true.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just saying.
No,
Is that a service staff could help some of these petitioners with?
Well, if it's not a is it a requirement?
It's not a requirement.
We provide them with a template that the building
Yeah,
It's not a
and,
requirement.
I'm just
Doesn't
saying,
matter,
sorry.
but if it's a requirement.
no, it's a valid question. I would say too, I think, personally, I don't know that the staff would agree with me on this, but there is a push to be more accessible, to accept things electronically. Well, sometimes when you are accepting electronic applications and site plans, we don't have the ability to consult people, and we don't get to screen them as well as if we were intaking an application in person.
Which the building department does more frequently than we do.
I would love to draw up better site plans for people, but I don't want to risk that I'm misrepresenting something and then.
yeah, that's, I would not have that expectation, you guys are doing that.
And I mean,
It'd be
we
like a new
do,
position created that specializes kind of in that service.
Technically speaking, under the ordinance, a site plan is supposed to be included.
I've been in planning departments where they have that, so that's why I'm saying it, yes.
Yes.
A site plan to scale or a site?
It just
plan?
says a site plan.
Oh, I thought it said
So
to
we got a
scale.
site, so somebody could do it in crayon and hand it to us.
so,
Hold on, it says a site plan under, that is described in a different ordinance, and what that ordinance says is for single-family dwellings or
There's a bullet.
two-family dwellings on platted lots would include a north arrow, address of the lot, scale not more than 1 inch equals 100 feet, legal description, names, center lines, and right-of-way of the roads, location and dimensions of all buildings, structures, and improvements. There's a bunch of stuff that it's got
And-
on there.
What ordinance is that?
It's our zoning ordinance, it's what's required to be in a site plan. But, so, we had a couple cases today where you felt like you didn't have sufficient information. I apologize for that. There are a number of cases where the Farial was starting to interject on, where we have held people back a month, and they get angry because they did not submit a sufficient site plan. Farial, it was your sign
I
petition on
believe,
Portage Road?
almost 4 months.
Hey, you can give them my phone number anytime you want, and I will handle that angry conversation.
I don't think
I'm
that's,
joking.
that's probably
So
not a
as-
good idea, yeah.
And I also wanted to make the point that, you know, if they have provided us with the materials and they've paid the filing fee, we put them on the agenda. Yeah, and then we often do, like even petitions from today, we go back and forth because we need more information, but sometimes they just, like you said, it's hard to receive a response, and then they show up here and it comes out like that, unfortunately. It's not something that we like either.
Oh, and listen, I'm not holding any of you
Yeah.
personally responsible or making any personal
Yeah.
comment. I understand you get what you get. That makes it harder for me, and as a board, then it comes up to us as, all right, if we aren't getting what we need, then we have to make the stand for you, realistically. There is no way you guys should be engineering or doing anything for these people at all. Believe me.
For the accessory without the primary, I do know we intended to get a better site plan. There was a miscommunication somewhere
Yes.
along the line.
Your guys' job is already hard
Yeah.
enough, but there's
For
sometimes.
big deal, Sean, you were busy, there's emails
There's-
and things.
There's sometimes, though, that when buildings come in and they're asking for a height, right, that it would be nice to see what the trusses look like, or what the building actually. If they've gotten to that point, they know what this stuff is gonna look like. Right? So, and they know that their height is gonna exceed a certain height. They've got a print already. So,
I just want to make sure we're defensible against anything that we do.
All right.
okay, findings of facts. Or wait, no, do we need to do this now?
No,
VP now?
we'll do that under other business.
All right.
Findings of fact first.
Make a motion, we approve the findings of the facts for February 14th, 2024 meeting.
Second?
That was Joe?
Yeah.
First and a second, Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 15th, 2023 meeting as written.
I had.
Donnie has a correction.
Yeah.
You have a correction? Subject to Donnie's corrections.
Always wait for Donnie.
He missed a second in the minutes, that we were missing the second on the motion. So that's what we'll go back and fill in.
The last page for the last petition.
Last page of the last, you went all the way through.
Oh,
Almost every
Donnie
other
almost
month.
wrote- I love how
Maybe
everyone's
2
always
out of 3.
surprised that, you know.
Hey, listen, I go through here and I do the yeses and the nos, and I make sure that's,
good job.
you're my proofreader.
Adam's impressed, I can tell by his
All right,
reaction.
so Joe made a motion based on Donnie's correction.
And I'll second.
All right, Donnie.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Go now?
Yes.
All right, so unfortunately, with Bob passing away, he was our VP of important things to the BZA. So, we do need to elect another VP, or vice chair, I'm sorry. Can I make this?
I would suggest
I-
you not make the nomination, but you can say that somebody has stepped up and said they would do it.
Okay, so Tom has stepped up and said that he would do it. Sorry.
I would nominate Tom to be vice chair.
Second.
All right, motion and a second.
Did you catch that, Tom?
I guess that's what you'll learn from missing a meeting in person, right?
Hey, that's how it always works. You're not here, you get delegated.
I'd be glad to do it.
Actually, it should be Sydney in that case, though.
Who should be Sydney.
Still need to vote.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on Tom becoming vice chair.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Outside of that,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right, motion and a second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
What was the outcome of the special use last month?
The what?
The special use